Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is go over to Heroku.com. Heroku.com, and we're going to sign up. So I'm going to sign up with my name, email. You do need to put a real email here, and you should anyways, because for one thing, they send an email confirmation, so you have to check that email. But more importantly, you'll get updates about if there is, for some reason, some freak accident, Heroku servers get hit by a lightning bolt or something, you'll get updates about what's happening. So our company name, I'll just say Web Dev Bootcamp. You don't have to put anything here. It's not really going to make a difference, but let's put Node.js, create free account. Then go check your email and confirm your account. All right, so once you do that, it will ask you, so you click the link, then you are asked to create a password, confirm the password, and then once you finish creating your account, it should take you to your Heroku dashboard. And this is going to be a place where you'll be able to see the apps that you have deployed. You'll be able to turn them on and off, set the URLs and any sort of other things you need to configure, any permission, security issues. This is your home base for any apps you have deployed on Heroku. So we're actually going to navigate away from this for now, but if you do want to poke around, take a look, they have some good getting started guides. So if you click on the Getting Started with Node guide, it will show you the steps that we're going to go through here. And so I will reference this, but you can also just watch this video to see what you need to do. So the very first thing that it talks about here is downloading and installing the Heroku tool belt for Mac or whatever machine that you're using. We actually don't have to use this because we're using Cloud9. So it comes pre-installed. Sorry, we do need to use it. We don't have to download it, excuse me. It comes pre-installed for us. So if you go to Cloud9, what we can actually do is make sure we're in the right directory and we stop our server. Great. If you just type the word Heroku, you'll see that we get some output. Anything other than command not found means that we have Heroku installed, and that just comes with Cloud9 for free. If you're doing this on a machine or you're not using Cloud9, you can, of course, download the correct version and follow the instructions. So the first thing we want to do is follow what it said, which is Heroku login. And this will prompt you for your email that you signed up for Heroku with, so it has to match. And it will also prompt you for your password. And it will look like you're not typing, it just hides it. So don't be concerned. There we go. We want to see authentication successful. So what we've done now is basically okayed this machine, this Cloud9 workspace, to work with, to add, integrate, to basically transfer stuff to Heroku, our Heroku space on Heroku servers. Because remember, that's all that we're doing is we're going to be sending this application and copying it over to Heroku's machines. So of course we don't want to let anyone do that to our account. We only want machines that we've signed in on, that we've authenticated to be able to do that. Okay, so that's the first step. The next thing we need to do is actually make sure that we're using Git in this directory. So in the directory, the top level directory of our project, this is important. You don't do it where you have other projects. You're not doing it in this folder, but in the directory where your app.js is and your package.json, we want to run git status. And in my case, I'm going to see not a Git repository. So we want to make it a Git repository, Git init. We use Git to determine what to send over to Heroku. And in our case, we're going to send the entire application. So once we initialize a repository, we're going to go ahead and add the files that we want to send over to Heroku with Git. So that's everything. So I'm just going to do one at a time. Git add app.js, git add package.json, and git add views, that whole directory. And we'll do git commit -m, and we'll just say initial commit. Great. If we go back to the instructions, you'll see a few things. Once you've installed the tool belt, you can click I have installed it. In this example, this tutorial, they give you a demo app. We already have one, so you can just say I cloned the app source code. The next thing that it tells you to do is run a command called Heroku create. So we can go ahead and do that. And what that will do is actually make space on Heroku, make a new application, generate a URL for you, and associate it with this current Git repository. So I'm going to run that right now. Heroku create. And you can see, first, this wouldn't work if I wasn't logged in. So if I didn't run Heroku login, it would ask me to authenticate first. But you can see that it makes me a new application and it gives it a random name. Heroku's pretty famous for these peaceful Zen nature-ish names that they come up with. So nameless atoll here with this random number. It also gives you this URL where your application will be deployed to. You can change this. You can look at the Heroku docs. You can specify your own herokuapp.com domain if you want. So if you wanted to check if demo application 123.herokuapp.com is available, you can do that. But you can also, of course, have your own domain. So if you own sally.com or cloudsareawesome.io, you can deploy an app that is deployed to Heroku. You can set it up so that it works with your domain. But you wouldn't do that just yet. So you still create this application here. You get this random Heroku URL. If we visit that right now, we just get this default, welcome to your new app. We don't have any code associated with this app yet. Heroku just knows that we want to make an app, that we have an empty app there. One other thing that happened is that it added a remote to our Git repository called Heroku. So if you take a look at git remote-v, you'll see here it added a remote called Heroku that we can push code to. So this is really important. This is how basically we transfer the code. This is how I'm going to tell Heroku, here's the code I want you to run. So when I push to Heroku, I'll run a command, git push Heroku master. So that's going to push whatever code I have added and committed on the master branch over to Heroku. So in this case, that's everything. Again, sometimes you don't want to push every single thing. Maybe there's some new code that you don't want to send over to your production server. But in this case, we want everything over. The app is working the way we want, so we're just going to push everything. So git push Heroku master. Before I do that, you'll see in the tutorial, it also tells you to do that. So if you get lost, if you prefer watching or reading the tutorial, you can follow that. We're doing exactly the same step. So git push Heroku master. Okay, so we can hit enter. I'll warn you that there is one thing that we haven't done that's going to cause a small problem, but I did it on purpose because I want to show you the process of debugging Heroku. So I'm going to hit enter though. And it takes a little bit usually, especially with larger apps. A lot of stuff is happening here. Usually this doesn't happen when you just push to GitHub. So this is all Heroku magic. You can go back and read a bunch of stuff about what's happening. Let's see. It detected that it's a Node app. It installed some of the important dependencies or the binaries. Then it installed the dependencies Express and EJS because of the package.json. And these are all the things that Express depends on. Then it built the application and then it launched it. So it says this application has been deployed to Heroku. So if we visit that URL, refresh, we would hope to see our app. However, all that we see is application error. So this is a really common screen when you're debugging Heroku, when you're starting out, when you're pushing a new app up there. What happens when you have an error with your code or something doesn't work is that on the Heroku side of things or on the web interface, all that you see is error. They don't put the specific error message in the details there because you wouldn't want to expose that to your users, obviously. So they keep things as hidden as possible. They just say application error. But then what happens is that you can view the issues, you can view the error messages and the logs in your command line. So to do that, we just type Heroku logs. and we get a lot of stuff here. If we scroll up, we'll see there's an error. And the error happened right here. Starting process with command npm start. And then it turns out we don't have an npm start command, missing script start. And then that causes all of our errors and things to crash. So again, I did this on purpose to show you, one, Heroku logs, how you could go ahead and take a look, because it hides the actual error message from you here, but that doesn't mean you can't see it. And this is a pretty common screen. If your app is crashing, Heroku logs is the important command. But what the error was saying is that we didn't have a start script. So what that start script does is it tells Heroku, it tells the server what code to run to start our application. So it basically does what we've been doing. To start our server, we've been running node app.js. But we're unable to do that because the code's not running here anymore. We're not running it on this workspace. That's the point. It's on Heroku. So we give it a start script. So we open up the package.json, and it goes inside of scripts. This is not something that you're expected to know. This is new. Start, and then node app.js. So what Heroku will do is when we push code to Heroku, it's going to first run npm install all the dependencies every time we push. So we might upgrade to a new version of Express. If we add and commit and then git push Heroku master, that will automatically run npm install on Heroku, get the new version, and then it runs npm start, which will run this right here, node app.js. So we can't just do git push Heroku master, because right now our git master branch is unchanged. We haven't added and committed that change we just made. So if you type git status, you can see on branch master, oh, well, I didn't save the file, so that would do it. Now if I type git status, you'll see modified package.json. So we want to add that, git commit, and all that we'll write here is add start script. Now all we need to do is git push Heroku master, and we're good to go. So git push Heroku master will start that entire process over, where it takes our code, takes a package.json, it installs these dependencies, and then it runs npm start, which we didn't have specified last time, so the app crashed. Whoops, meant to hit enter over here. It'll take a little bit. It's pushing it up to Heroku, it's installing things, installing dependencies, and let's see, launching, verifying the deploy. Okay, let's try refreshing now. And there we go. So we have our application running. Nameless atoll 64498.herokuapp.com. I can click on the routes, go back and forth. Awesome. The last thing that I'll show is on the Heroku dashboard. If you go back to your dashboard, we'll now have our application showing up right here. Oh, it's going to make me log in first. So once you log in, hopefully you won't have to, but once I log in, we'll see what I'm looking for. And as you can see, our new app is here. You can click on it, view information about it, anything about how long it's been up, how many people have accessed it, how often, who has permission to deploy and mess with this, who's an owner, a contributor, all sorts of different things. I'm not going to go into all of this. You can see all the different times we've pushed or deployed, when we initialized it, when we first released the app. And then this is also where you would come to set things up or configure things like custom domains, or you can add add-ons. The one thing I'll mention here is that we're using the free Heroku plan right now. There's no credit card associated. Where they make their money, though, is once you start having more users, you're going to upgrade. And what you would do is click here, upgrade to hobby. And so you can click on hobby, or you can go to professional. So you can see hobby starts at $7 a month. So definitely worth it if you are going to have, if you're going to start having more people viewing your applications. But even free works just fine for like a portfolio project, something you're going to send out to companies, as long as you're not expecting, thousands of hits a day. Okay, so that's all there is to Heroku here. I want to recap that though. So let's go back and go through this process one more time of updating our application. I want to update the homepage so that it has an image on it, let's say. And I happen to have an image here. It's kind of large, didn't think about that. This is an image I took recently. Been learning some photography on the side. So feel free to use whatever image you want, of course. Source equals gigantic source. Let's test it out locally. So node app.js. Refresh. Wow, gigantic image. That's fine though. So that's working fine locally. On Heroku though, that change is not taking effect at all. And that's because they're not inherently linked. We have to choose what we want to push to Heroku, and that's really the point. We have a workspace to play around with, to make mistakes, to try new things, and then if we want to incorporate them into the real app, I can then push them to Heroku. But Heroku should always be the last stable build, the last thing that worked before you went and messed something up. Okay, so all I need to do is get status. I need to add that change, commit, add image of bridge, and then git push Heroku master. So that workflow is really common. The first thing that we did, this isn't really part of the workflow, but the first thing was make sure you're in a Git repository. Then Heroku create. Then once you create, then what you're going to do is make sure you add and commit everything that you want to go over to Heroku, and then git push Heroku master. And then anytime you change or update it, same process. Git add, git commit, git push Heroku master. Refresh on our Heroku app, and there we go, our change has taken place. Awesome. All right, so in the next video, we're going to see how to deploy a more complex, substantial app with a database, which is a little bit of a headache, unfortunately.